Okay, thank you for coming. Just to clarify, we didn't make that CMS you're just talking about. That's nothing to do with us. So hi, I'm Jono. I'm from Anything. We're a digital agency specialising in headless CMS solutions. Today, the next 10 to 15 minutes, we're going to talk about the challenges of traditional content management systems and why we believe switching to a headless CMS like Storyblok is a better solution.
And hi, my name is Simon, despite what the slide says, not Julius. So I'm actually subbing in for him today, which is actually quite apt given what we're going to talk about in terms of how a headless CMS versus the traditional CMS works. But I think the talk basically is about what a standard CMS can't do and what the problems are, hence the title. So we thought it might be best to start with just helping define what do we mean by a standard or a traditional CMS.
Yeah, so when we were asked to do this talk, the first thing we wanted to do is not make it too techy. So we're trying to make it things everyone can relate to. So when we were thinking about what is a traditional CMS, well, it's a bit like a one-man band. It juggles absolutely everything for your website. It's not just looking after the content, it's also looking after how it looks, how it functions, and any integrations. First, it might seem like a great solution, but over time, we do start getting really pissed off with it.
So the alternative to that, and what we think is the best practice nowadays for CMS, is to think about it more like an orchestra, where instead of you have everything bundled into one and one system trying to do everything to support your website, you have a lot of specialist tools that come together that are best of breed in order to create a much more effective approach. So, I mean, and we said we're not going to try and put too much techie jargon into it, but this approach is kind of considered the Jamstack approach for the technology behind it. But I think some of the ways to think about it that is you're perhaps a bit more familiar with is just thinking about a CMS as another service as part of your wider tech stack. So I'm sure you'd be familiar with the likes of Salesforce and Stripe. So Storyblok as a headless CMS basically acts like another service that fits sort of seamlessly into everything you're doing and tries to remove some of the constraints you might have from a traditional CMS.
So to help explain the benefits of headless and Storyblok, we thought we'd forward research some of the frustrations users can have with traditional CMSs. So a big one is really security. CMSs like WordPress, they're free to download, extremely popular, but what comes with this is a prime targets for hackers. To keep your CMS, you're constantly installing these updates, so you get every week have to install a new update, and over time it becomes more and more difficult to actually install them updates. What you might do is install some plugins, customize that CMS, and it just comes a pain really over time. Got some stats for you. Security found that 39% of all CMSs infected were outdated at the time we were compromised, and a staggering 95% of them were using WordPress.
So the alternative approach to this, so a headless CMS, by the very nature of its construct, you're separating your website from where your content lives. So it's inherently more secure, but then Storyblok, in terms of our approach, in terms of how do we make sure that we keep your content safe, we go additional measures in terms of how we back it up and our processes support it. And so we're actually ISO 27001 certified. We think that's best practice. If you're considering changing your CMS, make sure you look for that, regardless of which option you end up going for. Your IT team will thank you.
So every CMS you probably used, it's always advertised as being really simple to use, but we just never are. No matter how simple you think a page update should be, it always ends up being a real pain and time-consuming. You often end up calling on a development team, even though the whole point of the CMS was not to have to call on a development team.
The visual editor
yeah,
is
so
the heart
this
of
is a
Storyblok.
quick video which summarizes
The intuitive
the
user
visual editor of
interface
Storyblok.
allows
So
you to
I'll let this
manage your
just run
content
through.
simply by browsing your website. By clicking on a component in your live preview, the configuration appears on the right-hand side. You can jump to multiple components and drag and drop your content wherever you prefer. It's simple to add and change the layout of your content. Rearranging text or optimizing and adding new images is as easy as it can be. Creating great content is a team effort. Storyblok makes it easy for all teams to collaborate in real time within the visual editor. Once you're finished editing, you can either start a feedback loop with a custom publishing workflow or publish instantly. Users create content and go to market faster with Storyblok's visual editor.
Yeah, so that's the Storyblok visual editor, and whenever we build websites for our customers, they absolutely love the visual editor. It's a really great feature of it. Google evaluates your website experience using a set of metrics called Core Web Vitals. These metrics ensure your website's quick and responsive. Optimizing performance with a traditional CMS, it can be a bit of a pain, especially when you've got plugins, database queries. And the big thing we always find, it really struggles when you get a sudden surge of traffic, the whole website will slow down.
So yeah, I mean, what we're showing now is one example of Jono and his team who worked for a customer called Amtico, and they came to him with a real problem about performance. It was having a big impact on their ability to convert customers who are coming to their site. And as a result of switching to Storyblok, they drastically reduced their performance, increased the performance, reduced the page load times. And you can see this is a comparison with their competitors now. So I think performance is a huge part of why you would choose a CMS. I mean, it doesn't, maybe not the most obvious thing, but we see that's a common factor that causes people to say, look, we need to make a change here.
Yeah, everyone wants a fast website, especially Google. Google really wants a fast website. So traditional CMSs, and when I say traditional CMS, again, I'm talking about WordPress, Umbraco, Sitecore. We've got really tightly integrated architecture, meaning that the site's appearance and functionality are all interconnected. It can be really tricky to make changes in isolation without impacting the whole website. We rely heavily on plugins for added functionality, and the problem with these plugins is they can come outdated, and it can become impossible to actually upgrade to the latest version of CMS.
So a really good example of this is Oatly's website. So I think they're known for their quite opinionated approach in marketing, and they have a very strong brand identity. So it was really important for them to be able to replicate that with their site. They didn't want a traditional sort of cookie-cutter site. And so if you visit their site, they have this sideways scrolling element, and they have a lot of visual content and graphics. And their team manage this directly. So every time they want to make a change or add new content or update the blog, this is something that their marketing and content teams can work with. So for creative teams that want to be able to move quickly and not be reliant on other teams in order to experiment with how they produce content, this is a really important thing.
Yeah, so traditional CMSs, they're primarily designed for delivering content to your website. But what if you want to share that same content to other platforms, such as your mobile app, to in-store devices, or perhaps social media? You end up entering that same content in multiple places. And we've also, what about website refreshes? How often have you found yourself entering the same content into another CMS just to update the website?
In terms of entering the same content or repeating tasks, another thing that we often hear speaking to customers on traditional CMS platforms is that as they have different channels, they need to update content separately for each one. And that can be really time-consuming, really inefficient for their team, not a waste of time. So with a headless CMS, because you're updating in one place, and then you can just push that content to different channels. So whether it be a website, app, maybe digital advertising, there's lots of different places which you can serve that content, but just update it from a single source of truth. And so if you're looking to update the website, another thing is often about like the plugins that you use, and you referenced about it's starting to be a limitation to move to a new system, because you can't move without breaking loads of other stuff because you've added lots of plugins to your WordPress setup, for example. And so one of the things about a modern headless content system as well is that because it's basically a SaaS product rather than something that you manage yourself, you get updates and features that are added as well. And we got pretty far through the talk without talking about AI, but there is a little bit here, so apologize, because I'm sure you will have heard that in every other talk today. But we'll introduce one of the latest features that Storyblok have just launched, which is called the Ideation Room.
So yeah, we're near the end of our talk. If you do want a demo of Storyblok, we've got a picnic stand which you can come over and have a little play. We recently launched a new MadFest website in Storyblok, so we can give you a go at actually editing the MadFest website, not the live version, obviously. And there's a chance to win a PS5 as well. That's it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you both. Just stay there. We've got some time just for some questions. So is anything in the room bubbling in terms of questions that I can ask? If not, I've got one to start with. Now, obviously, I said at the beginning, I had a bit of a trouble time, getting to grips with my website, etc. Can you talk me through why would I go to Storyblok out of the range of others, and in terms of the use for me? So are there typical companies that you work with that it works best for? Is it e-commerce? Is it agencies? Who does it work best for?
Yeah.
It's back.
The thing we find with Storyblok, the reason as an agency we use Storyblok is customers really love how visual it is. We really enjoy making the content in Storyblok. It's a very visual experience. You can see how it's going to look on mobile, how it's going to look on desktop in real time as you're editing it. So we find it's best for teams who want to be a bit creative, want to manage their own content and create exciting content themselves.
Brilliant, thank you. Is anyone here interested in trying out Storyblok? Do come and have a chat to the guys at the end. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Cheers.